affair. Hello and welcome to the Tennis Podcast, live from Wimbledon on day 14 of the Championships for our men's singles final preview. I'm Catherine Whitaker, this is Matt Roberts, this is David Law, and we are keeping our voices down a little bit because there is a critical match happening behind us
Big.
On court number 18 involving the Bryan brothers against apparently retired again Kevin Anderson and Leighton Hewitt. Leighton Hewitt, of course, one of two Hewitts currently on court. We are very much keeping an eye on Alfie Hewitt, who is setting a break up currently in his quest to finally complete the career Grand Slam by getting over the line here at Wimbledon. So if I occasionally look ever so slightly distracted, it's for good reasons, folks. It's to keep an eye on Alfie Hewitt. And Matt, I can trust you to keep across the big Anderson-Hewitt comeback.
Yeah, the Bryans are serving for the match as we speak, but face break point.
That's very Champions Tour, isn't it?
Yeah, extraordinary turn of events.
It might go to a tie-break. Who could possibly say? Although I have to say, there was a point in the first set where the Bryan brothers were 5-love up, which is very not Champions Tour.
Somebody didn't get the memo.
In fact, heads would roll on the Champions Tour if that scoreline was ever seen. Thank you to everybody that is here with us live. Hope you're enjoying the chat with Hannah. If you have any questions about the men's singles final, please do pop them in the chat and we'll try and answer as many of them as possible while we are giving our takes on what I think is the dream final, isn't it? Alcaraz Djokovic. I mean, how could you not, after what we saw last year, how could you not want to rerun that fun, right? That was one of the most epic days we've all experienced, and we kind of just want that again, right? Except we want it to finish ever so slightly earlier, just in time for the Euros final.
Yeah, it'd be nice to get the live show in, if we can, before the Euros final starts. But look, I think in any case, the type of players they are, how good they are, it's a rivalry. If that was something we could have for the next 10 years, we would take it. And I kind of think we're looking at that with Alcaraz and Sinner. But the fact that it isn't that, the fact that I feel like we're kind of lucky that this is happening, A, because of Djokovic's age, and B, because of his knee. 3 weeks ago, this would have seemed ludicrous. And I think even Novak Djokovic would have thought that was probably pretty far-fetched. So we've got to make the most of this, and I fully intend to.
And yet it feels quite different to me than last year in a way. I think because they're both in such a different place in a way. Like Alcaraz, last year, a lot of our pre-tournament, pre-match hype was about how will he cope with kind of the aura of Novak Djokovic that had got to him at Roland Garros, and now I'm not so worried about that. And we were also wondering, can anyone actually does Alcaraz's game match up on grass against Novak Djokovic? We've got the answer to that as well, and it felt like all the question marks last year were about Alcaraz. Whereas this year, I would say there's one big question mark over Alcaraz, which is can he manage those peaks and troughs that he's been having? But it feels to me like more of the question marks are kind of about Novak Djokovic because of the knee, because of the fact that we haven't actually seen him face anyone kind of his caliber since January. He hasn't played Alcaraz or Sinner since then. So there's just a little question mark there as well. And I think the dynamic in the matchup has slightly shifted in a year, which is what makes it so exciting, and which is why rivalries are always so interesting, because they do develop year on year. And as David said, it's such a treat that we get this again, because it did feel a little bit like it might be a one and done situation last year's final, but we've got it again, and it's fascinating.
There are very, very powerful and decisive stats relating to this matchup and this final, which could lead you to think that it's a done deal for either player. It's just a question of which stat you give the most weight to, right? I mean, the Djokovic stat of how often he goes on to win a best of 5 set match when he wins the first set, 322-6. That is one of the most extraordinary stats in men's tennis, and it wasn't that long ago that we were talking about a match being over against Novak Djokovic if he wins the first set, and yet you kind of feel that doesn't apply to Carlos Alcaraz. A, because he lost the first set in the final here last year and still went on to win, and B, he loses the first set against everybody and goes on to win.
3 out of 6 this tournament. I mean, that's not very good for a guy of his level. To lose first set against Francis Tiafoe, Tommy Paul, and then Daniil Medvedev. I mean, all very good players, but he should be winning the first set in one of those at least. And look, he's good enough. The 5-set format is such that he was able to turn those around. I mean, he really was dicing with trouble against Tiafoe in particular. And I think the sensible theory would be that if you do that against Djokovic, you're going to come unstuck, because he wasn't just a set down, he was in big trouble at times. So I think that the premium on the first set feels so enormous, A, because of that stat from a Novak Djokovic perspective, and the fact that he's got to be a little bit short of where he was a year ago physically, even if it's not the knee, i.e. the knee as an injury. It's got to be the lack of matches at this level, intensity, length. So he wants to be winning it inside the distance, really. Djokovic does, I think. I think 4 sets is the maximum he wants to be going, really. And the other thing is, like, if Alcaraz wins the first set, then the likelihood is that he's going to end up in at least a 5th set, really, because it's pretty hard to beat him in 4 from a set down, I would say, and win 3 sets in a row against Alcaraz. And then when you get into a 5th, this guy's 12-1, you know,
12-1, and we're not even sure we count the 1.
No,
with apologies to Matteo Berrettini.
And he's 21. He's not had a knee surgery, so I kind of feel like that first set is just enormous, really.
And then we have these other 2 competing stats that you pointed out today, Matt, of Alcaraz's 5-set record, 12-1/12-0, depending on how you look at it, and the fact that he's never come from 2 sets to love down, Alcaraz. Since you pointed that out on our group chat this morning, which was a mixture of very meaty stats about this match and us trying to explain to David who Jamie Dornan and Paul Mescal are, it was a great sequence of messages.
Who are these people?
But ever since Paul Mescal wears short shorts, so there's a tennis link for you.
Absolutely. So David's on sets 2 and 4.
Yes.
Of commentary for this on BBC Radio 5 Live, and we've just heard that if you want to watch the match with radio commentary, that option is available on iPlayer. So there's lots of reasons to want to watch this match in the company of David, but hearing him address Paul Mescal's short shorts, I think right at the top of the list, I would say. But anyway, back to the match. Since you pointed out that never come from 2 sets to love down record, and coupled with the fact that I'm just sort of assuming Alcaraz will lose the first set, I can't stop thinking about it. I can't stop thinking about the curiosity of what it would look like if Alcaraz goes 2 sets to love down.
Because you do feel like if he goes 2 sets to love down, if he drops, even if he just goes 1 set to love down, you do feel like Alcaraz will have a moment in this match where he finds his best tennis and he plays that incredibly explosive, creative stuff that even Novak Djokovic, I'm not sure, can live with at this stage in his career. But I think there's going to be, as David said, such a premium on Djokovic to come out fast and try and get this done quickly. And I think that's a big shift from last year as well. Like, okay, Alcaraz had a good 5-set record coming into last year's final, but it has grown, the aura around that has grown in the last year, particularly because he beat Novak Djokovic in a 5th set here. So I think last year Djokovic would have backed himself in 5 sets over Alcaraz. I think this year, with the doubts over the knee, the lack of matches in this sort of pressure environment that Djokovic has had in the last few months against this caliber opponent, I think when it gets long, you're starting to back Alcaraz. So it would be fascinating if Djokovic makes a fast start and Alcaraz comes back charging at him. But his record from one set up is amazing. Djokovic's record from 2 sets up is even better. Like it's only Jürgen Meltzer, and that's pre-superhuman Djokovic.
It's about 15 years ago.
Yeah, it was 2010 French Open, I think it was. Like, if he's 2 sets up, I really struggle to see him losing. So, yeah, like the start here is absolutely fascinating.
There's a few people asking in the chat about conditions and the fact that there will be some. There is, and I say this under advisement, there is no rain in the forecast for today. Where have we heard that before?
What's that thing there?
No rain in the forecast for today. We expect the roof to be open throughout. My feeling is that given the choice, Djokovic would choose roof open and Alcaraz would choose roof closed without question. I said that the wrong way round. Yeah. Djokovic, roof closed. Alcaraz, definitely roof open.
Yep.
And yet I also don't think it has that much bearing on the match and what it'll look like.
It was windy in last year's final.
Yeah, these conditions, and this is pretty benign at the moment.
Yeah.
It doesn't feel really windy. There's looking in the trees up here, there's a bit of movement, but it doesn't feel like a factor. And yet I just feel, in terms of comfort, this will suit Alcaraz down to the ground. There can be no excuses. He's fully fit. He's 21. He's playing a guy 37 with a knee problem or with a recent knee surgery. And that's not to say that the guy opposite him isn't so good that I think that this could definitely be won by Djokovic. But Alcaraz needs to find his best tennis today. And if he doesn't, you can't be talking about conditions or anything like that. For whatever reason, he just wouldn't have it. And I think that would be a big disappointment for him if he didn't, because this is when you need it.
Yeah, in that way is the pressure a bit more on Alcaraz today? Like I think last year,
I'd say so.
Last year, he was the underdog given Djokovic's record, given what had happened in Paris. This year, feels like Alcaraz is the favourite. The bookies have him as the favourite. He won last year. Like, if he were to lose to a 37-year-old who's just had knee surgery, okay, Novak Djokovic is not an ordinary 37-year-old who's just had knee surgery, but it would be a pretty epic counter to last year from Djokovic. It would change how people think about that rivalry if Djokovic wins. Whereas, I don't know, like I think Alcaraz was maybe able to play pretty free down the stretch last year, but it feels to me like the pressure's a little bit more on him compared to last year.
Hannah is totally mesmerised by this stat about players that benefit from late stage withdrawals in slams, as Novak Djokovic didn't have to play a quarter-final against Alex de Minaur, poor old Alex de Minaur, and how rarely that ends up resulting in the beneficiary winning the title. Could be a quirk of statistics, but the volume of cases and data suggests not a quirk of statistics. Do we read anything into that at all?
Well, I do, because I think it's part of the Novak Djokovic not having had the tight moments of peril to come through. And I think that is something that needs to be learned. Now, obviously, there's nobody more experienced at it over the course of a career than him, but recently he hasn't had those. So I do think, had he played de Minaur and got through 4 tight sets or something like that, I think he'd be in a better place right now than he is.
Yeah, because like the last time Djokovic played one of his biggest rivals right now, he got smoked by Sinner. He really did in that Australian Open semi-final. Okay, I know he battled and won that 3rd set, but 3 of those sets were not close.
It's funny, I remember that as a straight sets match.
Right.
Oh, me too. I'm constantly saying, he got beaten in straight sets, and he didn't, but it just felt like that.
Yeah, it did.
And yet...
Thank you, I feel...
I've said it on air several times, and Matt's like...
And yet, like... that's kind of the thing with Djokovic. Like, there's so much weight of history that you can't ignore. Like, how good his record is from a setup, how good he is in Grand Slam finals. And in the past, that aura has all contributed to him, I think, winning these matches. If you just take the most recent data, which is that Djokovic hasn't played one of these guys recently, and when he did, he lost pretty easily. When you just look at that, it feels like Alcaraz is quite a big favourite. But I can't ignore that weight of history with Novak Djokovic. I just can't. It feels to me like right now we have to be considering the Australian Open as the one-off rather than the new trend. And Novak Djokovic with a bit of a point to prove, how often has he lost like consecutive matches at slams to the same player? Like, he's not going to want to lose to Alcaraz again in a Wimbledon final. He's so good at getting revenge.
Yeah.
And I kind of give a lot of weight to that as well. Like, I do still think Alcaraz is going to win, but I don't think it's going to be kind of like a rollover like it was when Djokovic played Sinner in Australia.
Can I also say the other thing that I think I do give some weight to from a Djokovic perspective? This is the first time he has ever had the chance on a single day to win a 25th major title and own more Grand Slam singles titles than any human being that has ever lived, and to draw level with Roger Federer on 8 Wimbledons.
And just to stop you there, 25 is obviously huge, but I don't think we talk about the drawing level with Roger Federer enough. I think
it'd be big.
I think he really, nothing personal to Roger Federer, rather, I think it would be pretty big for him to sort of deny Roger Federer any kind of all-time record.
I think so too. But I think that if you offered Novak Djokovic a 25th major or an Olympic gold, I think that, like, for the rest of his career,
take a breath from cameraman Matthew there.
Yeah, I mean this because I think the assumption is, well, he'll get other chances. The Australian Open, he'll go and win that and win his 25th. He might not. This might be it for Novak Djokovic. Think back to Serena Williams.
But it definitely is at the Olympics.
Yes, it is.
So then what's your answer? What do you think he's right now?
I really think it's 50-50 because he will know. I know he will think that he's got more in him, right? But think of Serena Williams, the 2.5 years, the Grand Slam finals against Simona Halep, others that she got to, Bianca Andreescu.
And it was just assumed.
Yeah, we all just assumed she's going to do it. And it became harder and harder and harder and then impossible. And listen, Djokovic isn't there yet. Look, a year ago he won 3 in a year, right? But at any given point it might be the last time. And with Alcaraz as good as he is and Sinner as good as he is, it's not going to get easier. So the premium on it now. Get it done now. And just imagine doing it on centre court against the guy who beat you a year ago, who's 21, who everybody's talking about as the next great champion, and you do him on this court to get number 25. And that is so huge.
We know he responds well to a deadline.
Yeah. He's such a studious character. You can just imagine what he was going through yesterday in terms of preparation, the detail he would have gone in to try and win this match.
I think maybe a few months ago, maybe a year ago, I would have thought Olympic gold would be even more meaningful for Djokovic. Like, I agree it's very, very tight, but weren't you really persuaded by the way he spoke about Wimbledon here
big time
pre-tournament? There was absolutely no doubt in his mind that if he had a shot at playing Wimbledon, even if that meant potentially impacting the Olympics, he was going to play Wimbledon and want to win it. And I think, look, Olympic golds are huge and it would complete Novak Djokovic's career completely. But it's majors which is kind of the currency really in tennis. And if he gets to 25 and, as you say, gets that revenge on Alcaraz in a Wimbledon final, I don't think he would trade that for anything right now. I think he wants that desperately. And equaling Federer as well. I think I think this is a great point from David. Like, the motivation here in this one match is massive.
Yeah, you can analyse the tennis and the stats all you like, but it just sort of feels like the will of Novak Djokovic is stronger than any of that. And why don't we hear from somebody that understands the will of Novak Djokovic better than anybody? David has a direct line to Goran Ivanisevic. They mostly exchange expletives about the football, but occasionally they talk tennis. And David asked him yesterday, a couple of days ago, who he thinks is going to win today.
I don't know, man. Last year I would bet my life that Novak will win easy, and he lost. So, but I said before the tournament that Novak is a favorite, so I stick with that. He's ready, man. And that brain that he has, just too good. This is something that should be put in the Louvre Museum next to Mona Lisa, man. Special Novak brain. He will win. But it's gonna be a good match anyway. 4 sets, Novak.
Hang that brain in the Louvre.
You've got to have them here.
Not my favourite Goran quote from the last couple of weeks. That one pertains to Croatia's loss in the Euros that we probably can't repeat at this hour, but still good stuff there. I don't know what to make of it, because I find Goran so persuasive, and he obviously knows, and not just knows, there are people that know Djokovic. Obviously he has a fairly big inner circle, but understands. He's always got Novak Djokovic, hasn't he? Like almost nobody else, I think. And yet I also know that Goran he just always think Djokovic is going to win. Like, Djokovic could play till he's 60 and Goran would be picking him to win, right? Because he just believes in his will and his tennis and his brain to the nth degree.
Yeah, I think he also sees it from a tennis player's perspective as to how can anybody beat this guy when he's really on, when he's really playing well. That's what Goran thinks. And I think that Alcaraz actually really shocked him. You heard it in his voice there. And I know that Goran feels that final last year was one shot away from being Novak's a couple of times. He should have gone up 2-0 in his view. He said if that's 2-0, it is straight sets. That is Goran's view. Now again, Alcaraz might have proved that wrong. That was definitely Goran's view. And he also thought that drive forehand volley that he dumped in the net, Djokovic when he was in charge, should have been the pivotal moment. So he's been presented with something in Alcaraz that is kind of making the whole system malfunction, because this guy's just got some answers that nobody else has ever had, not even Federer and Nadal, and so yeah, you can hear it. He was really shocked, but I think he just believes in Djokovic's will, and he has things that Goran himself never had, like this ability to compartmentalize and focus. And I mean, sometimes some of it sounds a bit bonkers, when you're hearing Djokovic detail this stuff, but that is what makes him different. He has his own way of doing it, and he believes in it so much, and the evidence of its success is there for all to see.
And Djokovic's tennis brain, I think, is something that is probably frankly underrated. Like, I know, not by Goran clearly, but we don't really talk that much. We talk a lot about his mental strength, and we talk a lot about, over the years we've talked about his physicality, but I don't think he would be able to do what he's doing on this knee without his tennis brain. Like, the way he's playing to sort of counter that, to make it a non-factor through this tournament. Now, can he do that against Alcaraz, with Alcaraz's creativity from the back of the court and his ability to move Djokovic around, probably more than others? We'll see. But like, it's just, he's always steps ahead. He's always able to put players in uncomfortable positions, get the rallies, the types of shots that he wants. And I think he can even do that, I think, against Alcaraz. But if Alcaraz can push it and make it physical and really athletic, you kind of got to favour the 21-year-old.
Yeah, David, you nailed that the other night after the Musetti match, how Djokovic just knows what shot will lead to what shot will lead to what shot. And that was quite Musetti specific, your analysis, that just kind of being a dream matchup for him. Do you agree with Matt that he's still able to do that against someone like Alcaraz?
Yeah, because I think the evidence was there in that French Open match. That really shocked me. That's when I first saw it in a higher stakes environment. You know, I've always been aware of his understanding of the court and his increasing knowledge of how to use shots in order to set up other shots. And look, he's not the only one. I think all the players do it to some degree. He's just more enlightened than any other. But in that match, he's playing somebody who is the standout performer on clay that season. He'd won everything, and he's so fast and he's so powerful. How on earth do you deal with this? And the first set and a half, he had Alcaraz constantly off balance, constantly being wrong-footed, and Alcaraz is still quick enough to be able to adjust and do something about it, which was a wonderful sight in itself. But it was really fascinating to watch Djokovic dictating the tempo and dictating the direction of the rallies, and Alcaraz kind of having to react. And I think he will try and do that today. He will try and stand bang on the baseline, and no matter what's coming his way, he'll try and redirect it. You fizz one down to me, I'm going to redirect it into your backhand corner, and you're going to have to keep playing those shots, and I'm going to send you over there, and then I'll send you the wrong way, and you'll have to do one of your pirouettes, and people will go whoa, and occasionally you'll win a point, and everybody will go bananas, but actually I'm winning more of the points because you're off balance. So I think he is good enough to do it. It's just that as it wears on, I think, and because I've gone back and forth in my head about this, because on Friday night I was leaning Djokovic. I was leaning Djokovic against a player who's actually not in his top form at all, and I really don't think Alcaraz is. I think he's got to a title at the French Open and a final here without being in his best form, which in itself is scary.
1/6 of the way potentially today.
Yeah.
To your prediction.
Well,
with his best tennis still ahead of him.
And that's the thing. Is he going to be able to find... If he finds his best tennis, I definitely pick Alcaraz. I think Alcaraz's best tennis beats anybody that's still active. I actually think that Federer would have been a certain kind of player that would have found something to discomfort him. And that would have been fascinating. We'll never know, will we? And obviously Nadal on clay. I think that we will see Djokovic dictating, but eventually Alcaraz finding a game and getting to him and making it physical and outlasting him. That's what I think is going to happen.
So you've gone Alcaraz in 4?
In 4.
I think we've all gone Alcaraz in 4.
And I completely agree with David. I think Djokovic wants shorter points. I think he can dictate. I think he's got such a precise, accurate serve, Djokovic, that he needs that to be firing, and he needs to be pinning Alcaraz back with his deep returns, and all of that I think is in Djokovic's favour in the matchup. But if Alcaraz can find some peak moments and extend the match and use his legs and his creativity and extend the rallies, I think that's where I end up favouring Alcaraz.
Serves a problem as well, because he's not serving a high enough percentage at the moment, Alcaraz.
He needs to get that up.
Yeah.
He served great in the 5th set last year against Djokovic. Brilliant. But yeah, if he hasn't got that, then against the Djokovic return, that's a problem. Do we need to have the what if it's crap conversation?
Possibly. Could we have it in just a few moments' time? Because Alfie Hewitt has triple match point.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, he has twice had a break in this second set and been broken back. And he now leads 5-3. It's Martin de la Puente serving, and it's love 40.
Well, I I'm sure whatever happens today in this men's singles final, it will be a special moment. But I can't really think of a more special moment that is going to be felt by a player than Alfie Hewitt if he wins this. Because, I've interviewed him so many times in the last 2 or 3 years. Was on the court when he reached the final a couple of years ago, and then he had all those chances to serve for the match in the final, and he didn't take it. And, I think that, watching the men's doubles last night was an example of just the sheer shock from people. But
that's a raw.
That is a big raw.
That is he's
court
done it
one.
raw.
He's done it. Sorry, Martin de la Puente, but I think it's acceptable for us to support Brits against Spaniards today. Maybe.
Setting the tone.
I'm so pleased for Alfie Hewitt.
That's great.
That's amazing, and that's an incredible raw to hear from court number one, and fantastic for people that have got court number one tickets today to get to experience that, because it can be a slightly weird thing, can't it, being not on centre court on a finals day. You're very much kind of, they do put good matches on there, but I personally would have intense FOMO in that situation. But
I've got it a bit now.
Yeah, but yeah, that's incredibly cool. Okay, so what if it's crap?
I don't think it will be, but we've been in that situation before. I just think Alcaraz Medvedev was just so bitty, because Alcaraz was not at his explosive best the entire time. I think there might be there could be some lulls in the match. Can Djokovic be full pelt for 5 sets against Alcaraz? Probably not. He probably needs to time his moments as well. I don't think it will be crap, but I think it might not be every set incredible hitting all the time.
And it was 5-love, of course, last year. So, that wasn't. We remember the highs of last year, but I hope it's a bit better than Alcaraz Sinner was recently at the French, which was 5 sets, but was not great.
So you're both going Alcaraz in 4. What sequence do you expect? Are you both thinking Djokovic wins the first, Alcaraz wins the next 3? Is that?
I think most likely they split the first 2, but I also think there's a chance that Djokovic wins the first and then Alcaraz races away.
Yeah, against the 322-6 stat, that does feel to me like the most likely course of events if it's Alcaraz in 4, because of Alcaraz's slow starts this tournament.
It is likely to be not as good as last year, because
that was so good.
Almost all tennis matches in the history of time have been not as good as the men's singles final here last year. Now, I know that Alcaraz and Djokovic have had other incredible matches. You could argue that the Cincinnati final was as good as the Wimbledon final, albeit a 3-setter. But for me, as drama and a tennis watching experience, it was every bit as good, really, albeit not quite with the stakes of a Wimbledon final. So yeah, there is more than last year's final as evidence to suggest it will be really good, but the likelihood is it won't be quite as good, and that if it could just be an hour less good for the sake of the football, that would be fine.
Alcaraz wants that too.
Right, we're all on the same page here. Djokovic is a football fan. Everybody wants the same thing.
I think last year there was, as I said, there was the novelty of seeing it in a Wimbledon final for the first time. And I think our expectations were slightly tempered because of what had happened at the French.
Big time.
Whereas this year, because of what happened here last year, we've all got these sky-high expectations. And I genuinely think it's going to be a great match. I really do. But I'm just putting it out there.
Trying to prepare me and Catherine.
Just finally, have we talked enough about Djokovic's knee? He had knee surgery 39 days ago. He's still wearing this knee sleeve. yes, he's looked fine, but it was only a couple of rounds ago that he was saying, or 3 rounds ago, I suppose, only 3 rounds ago that he was saying, look, I know I look fine, but it's not fine.
Yeah.
I know in more recent press conferences he said it's better, but I still don't think it's been tested, the knee, in the way that Alcaraz will test it today.
I agree with you. And I think the one thing we haven't talked about really is the Alcaraz drop shot. And how much is he going to play that? Because he can jerk you around. He can move you up and down the court, side to side, in a way that you really don't like. And so, yeah, I think he's gonna work that knee out. So we'll find out. We'll find out whether that is really up to what he's going to ask of it.
Getting the balance right on the drop shot is interesting, isn't it? Because I felt like Rune went into that Djokovic match thinking, he's 37, he's wearing a knee sleeve, drop shot is going to be my friend today, and it really wasn't. And I'm not. The Alcaraz drop shot is better than the Rune drop shot, better than any drop shot, I think. So I do think it can be a weapon for him today, but surely testing the movement laterally has got to be as big a ploy. Hooking the ball wide onto Djokovic's forehand, stretching him out on that side.
Yeah, I think so. And remember that final game last year, Alcaraz serving it out? Like, he messed up a drop shot, and then on the very next point he played another one, and nailed it. And that's going to be it, isn't it? Because I do think that is going to be a good tactic for him, but I'm sure there will be times where it doesn't work. But he is the right side of the stubbornness line generally. He's got faith and belief in his tactics, and it's going to be a tactic generally, right? He has to get Djokovic moving, and he has to get Djokovic not just controlling the middle of the court and playing on his terms, and that's when I think he'll have the advantage. And the drop shot's a big part of that.
Okay, we are less than an hour and a half away from Alcaraz Djokovic Wimbledon final, take 2. I think you can probably tell that we're salivating at the prospect. It's going to be great, folks. Really, really hope you enjoy watching it at home. Hopefully, if you're in the UK, you get to watch it in the company of David Law for sets 2 and 4. That's certainly what I'll be doing. I'll be squeezing a little airbud in during those sets. So yeah, I hope it lives up to everybody's expectations, that you have a great watching experience, and that you join us afterwards for our reflections and David's predictions on how many consecutive Grand Slams the winner is going to win from this point onwards. As always, please keep across our feeds for exact timings of our final tennis podcast live from Wimbledon. We will let you know as soon as we know. Our intention is not to clash with the football, because I know not everybody that watches us is a football fan, but a lot of you will want to watch the football. So we are going to try and make it possible for you to do both, and for us to do both, quite frankly. But I promise that isn't the primary motivation. So that is our intention. Keep across our social feeds, the newsletter, our YouTube channel, and please do like and subscribe to that YouTube channel while I've got you. Keep across those feeds for exact timings for our final tennis podcast live from Wimbledon. Enjoy the final, folks. We will see you later.